we've been historically kept from being able to like grow our own foods, or being able to harvest from like fruiting trees like out in the wild. Like a lot of our laws about what you can and can't collect were to prevent poor people from being able to live off of the land.
Right.
Which is unethical. We have unethical laws. So if you're living ethically, I think there are ways to continue to forage and get food and connect with your environment in ways that I think, you know, Mother Earth would approve of.
I'm Sharmon.
I'm Katie.
And this is Unpacking Ethical,
a podcast where we sip our favorite drinks at the moment
and talk about some things.
Because there's nothing ethical about upholding the status quo.
Let's talk about it.
This week on Unpacking Ethical.
Hey, we are back for another episode of Unpacking Ethical. I am Sharmon, and we're here with my co-host Katie and our special guest. I'm like guys, whatever. Guest Allison. How are y'all doing? Because clearly this morning I can't talk. So, what y'all drinking today?
We'll go with Allison. What you wanted to share?
Oh, with me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is gonna sound so crazy. So I'm not living in Texas, but I'm like addicted to the HEB pecan cafe au lait coffee. And I'm a little sensitive to caffeine, so I do like half decaf, and then I added some lion's mane mushroom to it to help cut the brain fog.
Okay, you've got like a whole little like.
I have a whole thing. Oh yeah, that might be part of like my herbalism foray in foraging. Yeah. But yeah, I'm like,
I love that.
Yes.
How do I get some lion's mane mushroom to add to all of my beverages?
So you can either find it yourself or you can buy it. Yeah,
okay.
Like it's available. It's a supplement.
Is this is this what you found yourself though?
I didn't find this one. Okay. I have not found lion's mane yet.
Okay.
I'm actually not as like into mushroom. This is going to sound so sacrilege. I'm not as into mushrooms as my other foraging friends. I know, like every forager I know is like all about mushroom hunting, and I'm like, that's like fine. But I do like lion's mane and a few other mushrooms for the like health benefits, and this one I finally got a good one that's already pre-ground, so I'll send you the link. It's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, what are you drinking, Sharmon? No, you go.
Me? Okay. I just realized, okay, first of all, so we talked about, we recorded something else this morning, and then I put my cup somewhere and I have no idea where it went, and so then I had to get another mug, and then I just realized it's matching.
Oh, it does.
I pulled it up. I was
that's
like,
cute.
Hey. So I'm in my red ginseng. I'm just going to be drowning myself in red ginseng probably for like the next week, because I've just had all kinds of congestion and allergy issues, and I'm medicating right now.
But you're sounding even better as the time of the day goes by, because you even sound less congested and more clear now. So that red ginseng is getting the job done.
It's doing it. It's doing it.
That's good. I'm sipping on this same ginger mint tea. I'm obsessed with mint. I had a lemon balm once, a lemon balm like plant, and I would just go pluck the leaves and make those tea. But then it eventually left me. I tried everything.
Aww.
I'm gonna get another one, or either grow one. But I love mint, but ginger to everything just feels right. And then I kind of have been drinking this. I was telling Sharmon earlier, I didn't want to share what brand it is because I don't know about them yet, but it's a cacao essentials drink with almond milk, Peruvian cacao, dates, maca, and some prebiotics. And so sometimes I need a little chocolate.
Ooh.
It's good.
That sounds good.
Let me go review what people say about them before I share with everybody who they are.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We'll put a little disclaimer in there.
Yeah. I mean, unless they want to sponsor this episode, then we can talk.
Hey. And we'll put a little flash in there, be like, so this was the brand.
Right.
Yeah. Circle back.
We approve, we don't approve.
Yes.
Yeah. Try it all out first. Yeah.
So all of us within all of our little herbal drinks here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my segue into our foraging.
It's our foraging.
That's our foraging segue.
Gosh, that's so funny. Yeah.
That's how we're gonna do that.
Okay. I mean,
but
we can start with herbalism.
Yeah, well, actually, I want to kind of get started on how you got started into foraging.
Yes. So
where that interest came from.
Yeah, I still call myself a hobbyist forager. And like, I know you both read the article in Texas Monthly that got published last year, which was about sort of my journey into foraging. And it kind of started with a neighbor. I've always been interested in the outdoors, right? Like I've always been just like very outgoing, very feet on the ground, very maybe the word my mom would use was like tomboyish or whatever. And then I joined the Army and I loved being outdoors. While I was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I had a neighbor who said that their, one of their in-laws was a professional foraging chef. And I was like, say again? Like, what does that mean? Like, tell me more. And like, I connected the word foraging and I connected the word chef, but I couldn't to me, those seemed a little bit impractical because of the way commercial cooking industries are set up. And so I wanted to know a little bit more. And I was invited to a Thanksgiving dinner that just like I can still taste it. Like it knocked my socks off. This was years ago. And my mind was just blown that, the chef had hunted the turkey, had cultivated the bitters that we had as a digestif, that every part of that meal was locally sourced and almost entirely prepared by that person. And maybe we were kind of used to that. I'm half Jamaican, and when I'm in Jamaica, I feel like the closeness to the food is already kind of there. But in the US, I go to the grocery store and I buy chicken that's in a saran wrapped plastic package, right? I was unfamiliar that with this concept that you could do that here in the States. So that's how it started, was just knowing it existed and then knowing that someone was making a living and had a lifestyle based off of this. And then I started taking classes. I was like, sign me up. I can be outdoors with my dog and start looking at things more introspectively. So that to me was just life-changing and world-changing. Yeah.
Well, we're only a couple of minutes in and I'm like, where do I sign up for this course? It's the intentionality.
I will tell you all the tips and tricks. I will.
It's just amazing to hear that you had an actual immersed experience, where you were where someone put so much I guess connection to what they were trying to bring to the table, because food is one of the most important things that we connect over. It really does solidify bonds. I'm in a new partnership, and it's one of the things that has really helped. We love being in the kitchen, making things together, talking about, did you know what benefits come from this herb, and we should cook with it and see. And so hearing you talk about that aspect of it, but also that people have the joy of, really going out and getting creative and finding what they're going to find, and just, having a blast and blessing everybody along the way. That sounds really amazing.
And I'll say, I'm not a huge cook. For some reason, whatever that special gene or interest is, it skipped me. And I just I can be very comfortable with a bowl of cereal, but something about foraging has made me more interested in my food. It's made me more, if I collect something from the wild, I feel like I have to use it. I'm normally the kind of person where if I buy greens or something from the store and I don't use it that week, it goes bad in the fridge, I feel guilty, but I also don't think twice about it. And when I collect something from the wild, it's such a much more intimate experience. Like, you have to really know what you're doing. You're paying attention. You are taking something from while it's living in the ground or outside, and you're taking it, either you can extend its life by allowing it to be part of you, or it goes to waste. And waste just seems like not the thing we're doing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I love it. And if it inspires people to cook, go for it.
I love that. I'm like, I feel like I have not taken any classes. I think I just follow people and like read articles, and I'm living vicariously through everybody else. But I find that it's completely changed the way I think I look at plants and things, because, you know, I'll go hiking in the woods or even just walking in my neighborhood, and suddenly you're like, can I eat that? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I'm sitting there with my little Google lens, and I'm like, can I eat this?
Right. Yeah. I love those disclaimers too. They're like, we can't tell you if you can eat this or not. But then you go to another website and it's like, herbalism, of course you can eat this in these quantities, cook first. Like,
Right.
Yeah, it does. It helps you see the world and your environment in a completely different way. And I don't know if you all have noticed this, but it makes you, at least for me, I felt like that connection was more fragile, like more intimate and more. So when I signed up for a class, which there are classes, so you can do it yourself. You can just like learn as you go. And in a way, that's kind of how I started too. Like, when I found out it was possible, I was like grabbing like guidebooks of like wild things in my area that I could eat. And it was like berries or pine cones or whatever, wherever I was living. But there's also this way that you can, like, when you take classes, I took a very good one by a chef. They go by @chefswild on Instagram. That's their handle. And this was a very like almost college course considered curriculum. Like, it had you know, like foraging ethics, like papers, like why you can and can't forage in certain areas, like the history behind it, but also like how to read between the lines. Like, what are the like the fine print areas that are technically okay to forage and you don't need permission. And the more I was like reading, like taking the course and looking more specifically into what I can do, I was learning about also how to protect the environment around you, right? Like, if you're going to pick something and then go to another plant, have you cleaned the tools that you're using to harvest and not spreading disease in the process?
Wow.
Right? A different level of consideration that I just like, being maybe a kind of city, like sort of rural, but sort of city girl. Like, it's not something that was really in my mind at the time. So you can get into it in any way. And I think like, however you get into it, just keep going is like, there's so much to learn. There is so much. What about you, Katie? Have you noticed that as well? Like, just like being out and finding things like.
So yes, well, Sharmon tells me, she's mentioned to me about how, because we actually used to we hiked together in the past. And we hadn't done it in a while, but I started hiking very like I go pretty much every day when I can. Like, my son's out of school now, so it's hard, but I used to drop him off and immediately go do 4 miles or so in this beautiful park called Eisenhower Park. It's just so many different trails. I love going there. But I hadn't done the thing that Sharmon just mentioned. I just go, and there's physical benefits to it, but there's mental, and for me, spiritual. I really just like being in nature in general. But I see things, and I didn't think about like finding out, like, is this edible for me, or what is the benefit of this that's here, because everything has its purpose. So I think to hear you talking about foraging, and, you know, even Sharmon just kind of sharing like her admiration over the people who do it, it just seems like a very natural path for us, because we're already talking, you know, always talking about sustainability, but not this packaged up, perfect, costly sustainability, but this kind of like just really reconnecting with the things that are around us, and how do we, you know, show respect to these things, and how do we, you know, give and receive in a way that feels human, and so and very ethical. So I'm really kind of like interested in, I told my son we were going to go to the library and see if there was any books. So when he comes with me, maybe it's something that he and I can, you know, do together. I would love for him to start learning about it now.
Kids are excellent foraging learners. And in any of the classes I've taken, like more formally, I did one, I reported on one with Dr. Vorderbruggen. He goes by Meriwether more locally. He's kind of like a Texas figure, if you will. He's very, he has like a very interesting lifestyle and setup. He has a bunch of classes, and he's able to communicate about the world and earth around you in a way that's accessible to both youth and adults. And I've noticed that about a lot of foragers. Like, it's so natural. If you watch kids, they want to put things in their mouth. They're trying to taste like what's out there and what's good. And when you start kids younger, from what I've noticed, and the parents that are also interested in foraging too, like there's a lot of overlaps in different communities who are interested in foraging. They want their kids to know what's safe to eat, and like what to stay away from, or like how to use it, right? Like, hey, this is how you identify this thing. And hey, this is something that looks very similar to it, but it'll give you a tummy ache. Leave it alone. And it's a wonderful way to connect across families and across communities. Like San Antonio, especially, I know you both are there. That's my hometown as well. It has such a wonderful climate. And it's what's subtropical. So you get like a little bit, and then not far away, you have hill country. You get so many different varieties of like native species and plant species that, gosh, like I love when I see someone's yard that isn't manicured to death. You know, like I love seeing a native yard, native flowers, native whatever, whether it's an edible garden or a pollinator garden, right? Like helping the bees out and butterflies. Like there's so much around us that we can really connect to. And it starts with something as simple as a walk.
Right. Sharmon, maybe we need to, when we do our hike next, we can make this a whole thing that we do together. So I can, since you've already kind of gone down that path a little bit.
And you know where I started in, where is it? Crown Ridge Canyon. I started doing a hike through there. And so it's like up off of like the Bernie Stage Road area, kind of off of Babcock. But it's like a really short, like just like a little loop that's like about 2 miles long, and it's super easy walk. But there's like these little berries and little things, and I'm just like, ooh, what is that? Or you know, and so it's really interesting, I think, to connect to that. But that kind of takes me back to Allison when you were talking about Jamaica and how this is such a natural thing for so many other parts of the world, you know?
It's really almost excuse me, fascinating to me to think about how disconnected we've become from the closeness of our food, right? Like I am so used to going to the grocery store for whatever I need, that when I started taking these classes, I was like, why did that become normal? Like, how did this become what I rely on? Whereas like literally in Jamaica, like if I need, you know, chicken, I know the person who has chickens, who grows, like, you know, who raises them in the yard, and like it's a very local controlled process. Like you don't need to buy things that say organic because it already is. You know, in a way, and everything is sourced locally. Granted, Jamaica is a tropical place and almost anything grows there, like you would not believe. But there is something about, not like, they work with what they have. They're not importing strange fruits and foods because they have plenty of their own diverse diet and agriculture. And I think that, you know, when I meet people who are like, oh, I can't touch the chicken, or I can't, and I'm not, I will say like, it's been interesting. Some of the most popular foragers are vegan or vegetarian, and that's
Right.
fine. There are overlaps, but being
Right.
a forager doesn't necessarily make you one or the other. It just means that you are, I think, more intimately connected with, like, you're finding and sourcing your food directly or more locally and sustainably. And it's just interesting to me when you're like, oh, I don't want to touch the food. And I was like, did you know what had to happen for that chicken to make it to market? Like,
right. Oh, right. Yeah.
There's your disconnect.
Absolutely. The blinders are on. And what part of Jamaica is your family from?
They're from like the eastern part. My mom is from like the Portland, Port Antonio area. Ocho Rios is a good marker for like tourists. Like,
I was just there in March. We were in Montego Bay, but we got outside and we did a very beautiful ganja or weed tour.
Nice.
And it was a Black owned property, which was really nice. But it just to kind of go back to what you were talking about with the connection to food, and not just food, but just an understanding of resources are finite, and we have to nurture the things around us and care for them and have respect for them. And it just made me think of, I saw a video of a Rastafari guy living out in the middle of the woods, and he built and made and cooked, and everything had a purpose. Once he used the coconut milk, or chopped the coconut open and used that, he used them later for bowls or cups. And it's just like using everything around him. And I really want us all to get reconnected with that. And I'm especially happy to see, just honestly, more visibility for Black people who are doing these things and have been doing these things, and especially a space like foraging, because it, just like most other things, it's become a whitewashed space and white dominated space. So
and one of the foragers gaining a lot more publicity and like making sort of a name for themselves is Alexis Nicole. She goes by the Black Forager or Black Forager on Instagram. Love her posts. And there is something about like seeing yourself as a Black woman in the outdoors, taking up space, but also her message, her and a lot of others, which by the way, they won James Beard awards for their work in the food industry. There's something about really both the visibility and reclaiming. Alexis Nicole talks a lot about how we've been historically kept from being able to like grow our own foods, or being able to harvest from like fruiting trees like out in the wild. Like a lot of our laws about what you can and can't collect were to prevent poor people from being able to live off of the land. Which is unethical. We have unethical laws. So if you're living ethically, I think there are ways to continue to forage and get food and connect with your environment in ways that I think, Mother Earth would approve of. So
I love the way you put that.
I was like, this is my anarchist stance right here. It's like, do what you want as long as the earth is happy. And I think it's wonderful to see just like people enjoying the earth outside of the ways that we've been told that we can, or outside of labor. And I'll add baby steps to this, right? Like I actually got a lot of feedback from that article in Texas Monthly that people were like, this is impractical. Ain't nobody got time for this. And I was like, sure, if with that attitude. And this is part of, if you look at it as a bigger whole, carving out time and space to be more intentional does take more effort. That there's a reason why more sustainable products and food cost more money. And this is a way to do it either cheap or free, or I had this goal to like substitute pantry items like up to 30% within the next year. I've since moved, and that goal has like shifted because like resources aren't as available, or I'm not as familiar with what's around me. But guess what? I can find people who are living by those same values, and I can source from more local providers. I can source from people who buy from foragers. and other herbalists. Like
Yeah.
creating that list of that level of intentionality feels really nice. And guess what? If you don't have time to do it, someone else will be doing it and has that closer, more intimate connection that is not exploitative, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people understand. You want that mango from Peru, it's going to cost you some ethical concessions along the line of it getting to you.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Sharmon, did you have something you're gonna
No,
say?
I was just thinking, I'm like, you just bring up a lot of good points.
I mean,
There's a
yeah.
lot just to unpack just in that little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about what you were talking about with kids, and or young children, how they're great foragers because they're just so open anyway.
Yeah.
But I went to this exhibit once and they were talking about the immune system and how it's so important for when the immune system is really building and developing for it to be introduced to things, all sorts of things, so that it can learn to build up defenses when it needs to be defensive and to be not defensive when it doesn't need to be. And so it just made me think about with kids putting things in their mouth and they're building a relationship and a deep knowledge of what's harmful, what's good. And it's just, and now I'm just thinking I'm homeschooling my son in the fall because we're in a transition phase where we're going to be moving outside of the country, which I'm really excited about with this journey, in a tropical place. But I'm just excited about maybe this will be the whole what we do. You can learn so much in nature about everything. We can do math and reading and all of that stuff too, but just being outside with him and taking on this. So I'm so happy that y'all have shared this with me because I'm like, oh, this gives me a new purpose.
Yes. And you can take it as far as you want, right? You talked about the Rasta man who was like, building his own hut and everything. I would say like there are extremes, right? Like you can go totally off grid, you can be a homesteader. I think I may have wrote a little bit about like survivalists and preppers, and that's a whole different subsect of people that I'm both interested in, but I don't want to be affiliated with necessarily. Like it's a whole doomsday situation. I'm like, that's not for me. That's not for me. I like the skills. I don't like the vibe. But there are ways where you can carve out little pieces for yourself, having peace of mind, like with the way that you are connected with nature and just like paying attention to people who are paying attention, right? I've met a lot of people who take so many shortcuts and they don't realize they're taking shortcuts. And I've become much more interested in things like the slow food movement, and just like sustainability in general. It's not profitable, not in a way that we are used to in a more capitalistic society,
right?
But it is sustainable. It is giving. It is nurturing, and that has its own value. It's I think longer lasting. So the more people get out there and do it, the better. You can look up local foraging classes. Libraries are really good at putting on programs. Botanical gardens are really good at, helping you get more connected with, hey, like this plant has been here, this species, as far as we know, it has been here since the beginning of time. Like I'm always fascinated when I walk by something and I'm like, I wonder how long like that's been what it is.
Right.
And there are experts in your area. Usually almost everywhere around this world, there's somebody who cares this intensely about like land and the nature around it, that they know so much about the plants in the area. And then they also know about, I don't know if we have time to get into it, but like native plant species versus things that like we introduce over time. It's just a really fascinating, we have an amazing world. And, this is just one way to get out there and explore it.
And Texas is so vast, right, Sharmon? Like Sharmon and I are not from San Antonio. I grew up in Dallas, but even with all of, and I lived in Dallas, and then I lived in Waco, Texas, and then in San Antonio. So those are the places. But just thinking about when I'm looking for new adventures to do with Castle, and I'm finding, like there's this one swimming hole that we go to, and it's surrounded by these trees that are somewhere around 400 years old. And just like Texas the land is vast and beautiful. And I really wish that was more of what Texas was known for. That's usually not the case. Well, that.
Still have hope. I'm like, it might not be my lifetime, but maybe we'll get it a different kind of. I can't tell you
maybe
how many
we'll
people are like Texas
tacos.
Okay, listen, this might be part of my retirement plan is to like, yeah. I mean, listen, like you can make so many awesome foraged items that are close to what you already have. Prickly pear is by far my favorite foraged item for the Southwest because almost every part of that cactus is edible. You have nopales, right? Like those tender young green paddles that you can chop up and pickle and like add to your tacos. You have the prickly pear fruit. My favorite, I have made a sorbet with prickly pear fruit. Ooh. And it is just like you can throw down and it with like less effort. I will say, like, you know, there are the needles that you have to deal with, or what are they called? Starts with a B. But basically those tiny little hairs that get everywhere, you have to burn them off. But you can really live it up in the wild once you get comfortable and start, you know, paying attention to what you have out there and what grows at different times. You'll be all right.
It seems so healing too. Have you found that to be this whole journey to be healing for you in ways that maybe you don't even think about?
Oh, I think about it all the time. So in addition to like, so I'm a yogi as well. So I'm a practicing just yogi and an instructor, and I am constantly meditating on like staying and being more present. And throughout the pandemic, a large part of the pandemic, I was underemployed. I'll put it that way. I wasn't not working, but I wasn't working at the extent that I really wanted to be. And I was stressed, like being inside, cooped up, you know, not able to see people or my loved ones. You know, I needed to get out and not go crazy in my own head. And being outside, going for these long walks every day, with my dog, with this plant identifying app and taking notes and like having taken this class. So I was like, I allowed myself to immerse in this sort of hobby. And it was so nice being able to say, I can look in the distance and say, oh, there's pecan trees over there. Oh, that's a live oak tree. Oh, that's a pawpaw tree. Like different things connecting with the world in a way that in the past I would have just like walked by and maybe not noticed the texture of the leaves. And now I do. Now I can look very closely and say, hey, guess what? On that oak, there are lots of species of wasps because I can see the oak galls that they make. The healing has been, I think, immeasurable even to this day for me. There are times where I'm just like, thank goodness I can just get up and go outside. Like, I can get up, put my feet on the ground, sweat a bunch, and then come back smelling like outside.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you all? Have you noticed it as healing?
I do notice that I think I do better when I do like hikes versus like walking around in my neighborhood. Just being in trees is just very helpful and healing. And, you know, as with many things, I feel like that has, is becoming a white dominated thing as they're getting into, I don't know, this forest bathing thing now, which has been something that, you know, Native
It's just going outside and being in nature.
Yeah.
That's just somebody slapping a label on a thing that already exists.
They love doing that though.
They do.
So yeah, I'm like, so that's kind of been my thing. And so it's been on my calendar actually probably for like the last month that I'm trying to make a point to do like the actual nature hikes and get out of my neighborhood, at least on the weekends, and just take walks and take walks in the woods.
Yeah.
It's a whole experience.
I don't kill people when I come back in the week.
So. Yeah.
Right. This is good for everyone.
It is good for everyone. I agree.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I recently went through a very big loss in my life, and for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, but we've all had various types of grief that we've navigated through.
Yes.
Even sometimes, like the healing process, grieving people that you're the person that you're no longer, like that's a whole thing in its own. But
Yes.
for whatever reason, my body just went into self-care survival mode.
Yes.
And I was moving very consistently and feeling good. Like even when I had a situation where I was going back and forth between here and Dallas, like flying and going to the hospital. Well, I would, step outside the hospital, and I literally parked like on the top floor of the parking garage just so I'd have to take the stairs. And it there was trees and stuff. They have, they make it all pretty, but I was just like, I'm gonna go walk. And when I was here in San Antonio, my hikes I was still sticking with them. And I don't know, I just feel like you're out here, you're kind of removed from a lot. My head feels more clear because we're also, all the towers and the wires and all of that stuff interferes with us. Like, we're electrical beings, so I can't imagine like we're around it all the time. So somehow the trees just make me feel safe. I don't feel closed in. The world feels big, but I just feel very safe and protected. And I have this thing where when I'm leaving my hike, I always touch the grass or a leaf or a plant or something. And it just, I know people probably think I'm weird, but I just, I'm sending a message when I do that. Like, I see you, I feel you, thank you. And I'm going to get emotional because I just feel so very connected. But I just think that reciprocity and that relationship that we have with nature and just the earth in general, like, it can be felt. And the nature, Mother Earth feels it. And so I just believe good things come from that. And I'm so happy just to see Black people, because we need this. We have to. It's so much a part. And I won't just say just racially Black people, but just indigenous people in general. This is our home. Like, I don't want to get too far off, but real quick, like, you remember when all the fires were happening in Australia a few years ago, where all the celebrities who had homes there got to be front and center about their losses. I had to go and find this article because the first thing I thought of was like, what are the indigenous people of that like that area? What are they feeling? And I saw an article where the people who had been there since, the beginning, who had been displaced, colonization, all of those things that happened, they said, like, we're mourning not our cousin, this is our family. These trees are our family, and we're watching them burn. And you're not going to see that on CNN. They wanted to put Chris Hemsworth on there to talk about it. And not to dismiss anybody's, grief in that time, but like, to hear them say that, I'm just like, we are so deeply connected to these things. And so just when we're able to, and we're able to touch and feel and be out and breathe in this air while we still can, and these trees are doing as much as they possibly can to keep that air.
They're trying.
They're trying. For us, it's like, I want to give what I can. I'm going to give love, and I'm going to show gratitude. And that's what, foraging feels like. I said, for us, it just feels like a very natural path. Sharmon, I don't know if you have a question, but I do have a quick question for Allison, because you mentioned a few different reading materials. Could you, share like some of your favorite books, or some even like the best recommendations for books for people who are just wanting to start?
Honestly, just from what you were just talking about, I will say I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list and I already know the synopsis. Braiding Sweetgrass is written by a Indigenous American woman, and she talks about this nature, like this relationship we have with nature, and how we can be more interconnected, but also just like how fragile that relationship is. So that one is, and that book is everywhere. You can get that book almost anywhere. I recommend ordering from Black Pearl Books in Austin. It's a Black-owned bookstore. So that one's really important. When it comes to foraging in general, I would say Samuel Thayer is really well known. His works are older, and there are some things that have been like disproved, like, no, you don't have to blanch that thing. But all of his books are on every forager's recommended reading list. I just bought Marie Viljoen's, I'm probably mispronouncing her last name. I think it's Dutch. Viljoen, Forage Harvest Peace. And it's a foraging inspired, like a wild inspired cookbook. So not all of the items have to be foraged, but these are commonly available items in the wild that you can get and make nice recipes, like an herb like mugwort. You can make mugwort crackers, or like how to make mugwort salt. Like some of the recipes that Alexis Nicole uses, like there's like just this process of cooking that if you're not a really good cook, like you start to learn more and more about like the science of cooking because of the natural elements. So I would recommend any of those. I'm sure that there are more and I just haven't even gotten to them yet, but I've also been reading more about slow food in general. And I think the title of the book is like Slow Cooking or Slow Food. And it also talks about maybe more high level agricultural disruption, right? And like the need to bring it down to more basic levels. So it depends on how you want to attack and frame your learning experience. I think if you want the more spiritually based side, start with like Braiding Sweetgrass. It's wonderfully written and it's been very well received critically, I think around the world at this point. And then local books. So I have a book about herbal, I need to find it. It's written by, I went to Texas Christian University, I went to TCU. The author is also a graduate of TCU, and it's about herbalism from items that you can find like in your backyard, right? Right. So like things like, you know, dandelions and mugwort tea can also be used for like menstrual relief. Like there's so many things that, you know, we used to dismiss as old wives' tales that are actually now have better scientific backing. And because of the roots of colonialism, like we've overlooked what is good for us and useful within the land that we actually occupy and currently live on. Like there are great benefits to the things that thrive and grow on this earth, in whatever pocket of the world you're in, right? Like recipes that were developed in Europe were developed because they were occupying that land. That doesn't mean that we need to eat that in the US. We have our own natural peppers. We have our own natural grains. We have our own things that don't take up as many resources, logistically, water, energy wise, as, you know, importing things does. So I would say start there. Just start with very local things. And if you want big picture, there are some, you know, big picture books. So yeah. How was that? Was that a good recommendation?
It was great.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great. That was really great. I'm like, we're closing in on here, but I did want to see if I know you gave us so much, like to like summarize maybe like steps you would suggest people take if they are like interested in getting into foraging.
Yeah. So first, like if you're interested in foraging, I would say maybe analyze like what's making you interested. Is it because like you can eat? Is it because you can be outside? Because if you're not interested in like some people don't like the outdoors, and I respect that. I do. I like it. I don't care if mosquitoes come after me. I've got permethrin treated clothes. Like I like the wild.
Yeah.
Some people don't, but they want to live more ethically and sustainably. And there are more companies and people that are trying to do more local things. So I would say start looking into your area of who's already doing those things, right? Join groups that maybe allow you to explore more. In San Antonio, there's like Girls Who Hike Texas. That's a great group. That during the pandemic, I was just like out walking with 20 women in like Frederick's State Park, like, you know, just like getting out there and figuring out if you like the food aspect, there are ways to consume more ethical foraged foods. There are apps you can use, but I would recommend not relying on apps, especially when you're not sure about identifying, but taking classes from your local library or botanical garden, wherever you are in the world. Yeah, look it up. I say look it up like Google it. I'm not saying it in like a derogatory way. Like, please don't let this trigger you into defensiveness.
No.
I'm not like suggesting that you are not intelligent enough to look it up, but I am saying that in my experience, I had such a strange introduction to foraging that already combined my interests. Like, I like food. I'm a human being. I need to eat.
Yeah.
I had a great meal. I like being outdoors. I walk my dog all the time. Mm-hmm. Now I have these two colliding interests that I was like, I'm going to learn more, and I'm going to learn from knowledgeable people. So I would start there, like go hiking, go on a tour with somebody. You can take a class as well. But if you want to know like what the end result looks like, start with the food. Yeah. Like, find the people that are making the food from the local items in your area. And I would even say drinks too. If you're not a huge food person, there are some amazing cordials that can be made. The cocktails are amazing. Herbal remedies are incredible. Like, there are pockets of people everywhere that are doing these sorts of things, and you can get plugged in.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where can people find you, Allison?
Oh man, I did not think this through. I am mostly like pretty underground, to be honest. I do have. Okay. I know. I'm trying
like
to get
you
better at it.
You can't find me.
you really can't. Yeah, just you try.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
That's maybe my old military side is all like, you can't find me if you wanted to. Right. You can find me on Twitter. I am under AP Erickson, A_P_Erickson, ERICKSON. I don't post on there very often, but when I do, it's, my writing and things that I'm up to. I may be starting a newsletter pretty soon to kind of aggregate all of this foraging interest, because it seems to be something that people are very, very interested in. And there are some amazing resources out there. So that might be coming from me soon. It'll probably be like the hobbyist forager. I'm not planning on making a profession out of this.
Yeah.
I just enjoy it. But there are some amazing people who've already done incredible work with recipes, with walking tours, guided walks. And I think that everybody should have a chance to tap in.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, thank you so much.
Well, likewise, thank you for inviting me. And if you guys have any more questions, let me know. And also, I go to San Antonio really often. So if you're like, I really want to forage, hit me up. I will show you the spots.
I'm like, well, let us know when you're here.
Let us know when you're here.
Okay, I'll drop a line.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your time and for sharing your love and your passion, and also just putting it all in a way in a nice package for people to just really be able to digest. Thank you for that. So
awesome. Thank you for your forum.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening and or watching. Unpacking Ethical is an independent video podcast hosted by the Ethical Network of San Antonio. Your co-hosts are Sharmon, Lebby, and Katie, and we thank you for tuning in. Please follow us on Instagram and our YouTube channel, and hey, leave a review wherever you're listening.